All right, we're going to go to your phone calls. Nolan, Don, Gregory, and Nigel in Japan. Let's go to Nigel first. You're on the air with climatologist Dr. Tim Ball, persecuted, one of the most persecuted people out there because he was so dead on with his research and now completely vindicated in spades. Caller in Japan, you're on the air with our guest. Go ahead.
Hello. I just want to say that I don't want to contradict with the cutting of the rainforest too much, but the trees do take hundreds of years to grow, and that when they do get cut down, they don't. The whole ecosystem does get destroyed. There's so many animals that depend on that very ancient,
that was last hour's guess. The point is the globalist, Al Gore, actually with Occidental Petroleum, was cutting down rainforest, but using it as a way to get donations for themselves. Clearly, that's more of an environmental threat than carbon dioxide. And genetic engineering, open air, cross species, there are environmental issues. The point is the groups running all this could care less about that. Dr. Tim Ball.
Well, and of course, one of the things that triggered the increase of cutting of the rainforest was the World Bank giving money to Brazil on condition that they cleared the forest and developed their agriculture to form a good agricultural base to the economy, just as in the U.S. Once they stopped that funding, the level of cutting dropped dramatically.
Again, every time I look, it's the globalists that are actually hurting the earth, and then they create the crisis and then offer the solution.
Yeah, exactly. And not only that, but there was no real measure of how much forest had been cut. And a few Swedish experts said, let's get a measure of this. And it turned out that the numbers given were by accountants at the World Bank who went to the scientists and said, well, how much forest is cut and how much is going to cut this year? And they said, we don't know. So they made up a number. And it turned out that the number that was in circulation and used by everybody was at least 85% in excess of the actual number.
Yeah, Nigel, I agree with you that destroying old growth needs to be controlled because that's regrowth is different than old growth. But anything else, Nigel?
Yes, I highly recommend seeing rebelswanted.com because there's so much information on there about the environment, and the health section is so important.
All right. We appreciate your call, sir. Thank you. Nolan in Texas, going as many calls as possible. Nolan, you're on the air with climatologist Tim Ball.
Dr. Ball, I would like to know, based on these emails that have come out, is there a way that we can draw a line between the UN or any governmental or any globalist bunch and these scientists that show that their funding was predicated on their findings and that the funding was through either the UN or someone controlled by and friendly to their globalist agenda?
Dr. Ball, go ahead.
Well, there really isn't a way of drawing a line, because one of the things that Strong did, and unfortunately my own government were deeply involved in this, was that the IPCC, and they kept talking about 2,500 scientists, the majority of them are bureaucrats appointed by their individual governments. And as Lindzen said when he finally resigned from the IPCC, he said these people know nothing about climate. They're simply put on there because they will parrot the government position. And so there's so much intertwining between these scientists and the UN that, as I said, the only way to really deal with it is to Nolan is to shut down the IPCC completely.
Look, and all these guys are creatures of the UN. They pick the universities they want to use because they are giving them the data they want.
Yeah, it's so intertwined that it's kind of like doing brain surgery, where the danger of cutting something bad. Say no, sorry, there's nothing I can do about this. We just got to let it run its course, and the course it's got to run is to scrap the IPCC.
Yeah, I mean the UN is a group of criminals. They're constantly caught in child sex slave rings, money for oil scams. I mean, it's just a group of degenerate scum. More calls straight ahead. Daryl Rundas to talk about a host of issues in studio with us. And we'll take calls as well while he's with us. I'm going to go over a bunch of news and comment it with Daryl. Coming up, final segment with Dr. Tim Ball. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't just let these internal emails come and go. I mean, we have the code they use in the climatology models where again, there's notes by the programmers. Here's how you make the fraud work. Here's how you make colder temperatures look higher. Here's how we do it. I mean, that's all. And there's thousands of pages. More and more is being analyzed now. It's getting worse by the minute. And imagine if other people inside institutions start leaking stuff. I mean, this could really bring them down, couldn't it, Doctor?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, as I said, this core at the CRU, and that's why I think it was hacked, or at least I think that it's a whistleblower, because I think somebody inside, and there are some comments in some of the emails saying, should we really be doing this? Isn't this going a bit too far? So clearly there were some people in there with a little bit of conscience, and I suspect that one of them saw Copenhagen looting and these things being completely globally institutionalized, and said, no, I've got to get this stuff out there. So
because I've talked to a lot of environmentalists. They go, okay, carbon dioxide isn't bad, but we've got to do this to develop new technologies. We've got to lie. And I think a lot of them are going, man, global government run by Ken Lay, who set this up. What? I mean,
yeah, he's the reason that partially the reason, the main reason actually, you could argue that California is in such trouble, because he talked them into all their energy policies, and so that's a great part of the difficulty.
Let's take another call. John in Ohio, you're on the air with Dr. Tim Ball. Go ahead.
Is there a possible correlation between the timeline of Jay Rockefeller stating the Internet should never have existed and when the BBC first got the information that the climate info was hacked and they refused to talk about it?
That did happen around the same time.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, and of course what we're seeing here is the value of the Internet, because up until that really came on the scene, information, which we've always known was power, was initially controlled by the monarchies and so on, and then, of course, the establishment of the U.S. and democracy, and the whole Fathers of Confederation saying, no, everything's got to be available to everybody, and everybody's got to have some input to it. But that really didn't materialize until the Internet came out there. And it's really the true democratization of information.
Yes.
And so Rockefeller realized that and realized how important it was to control it. I agree.
And they're now announcing they plan to incrementally shut it down. Anything else, Don?
We know exactly what day it was released to the BBC, and they refused it?
About 6 weeks ago.
September the 12th, I believe, was the date.
When?
I stand to be corrected on that, but I believe that was date. You could check on Climate Depot, DEPOT, Climate Depot with Mark Morano. He's got the date on there on that story.
They say 5 weeks ago, so that's about 6 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
Rumors of this were floating around Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Then it was confirmed Friday. Because I remember seeing blurbs, this stuff's been hacked. We were like, is this real? And then I just want to salute the people that got this out, whether they're hackers or leakers. Gregory in Indiana, you got about 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Thanks, Alice. Thanks, Alice, for taking my call. I just got a question for Dr. Ball. If these guys were to get charged, where would the jurisdiction be in the courts? Would it be in the U.S. or in Brussels, in the international court?
Well, we don't want the UN doing it. It'd be local law.
It occurred in the UK, but some of the people involved are outside of the UK. Michael Mann, for example, is at Penn State, and somebody said it should be State Penn, but he's at in the U.S. So, possibly, and certainly because of the involvement of the United Nations, making it global, maybe the World Court is the venue. But the difficulty is the World Court hasn't got a particularly good track record either.
Yeah, they're run by the same people. Yeah. Dr. Tim Ball, I want to get you back up again in the next few weeks. Have a great weekend coming up, a great Thanksgiving. God bless you for your courage in the face of these criminals. You have come out smelling like a rose. We salute your courage.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for the opportunity to get my word out.